So, okay, let me adjust this real quick before we go actual live. Okay, here we go. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How's everybody this morning?
Great.
All right, so.
What day is it?
Thursday.
Do we have our patients on?
Yes.
Yes. Jeremy, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. So, by a show of hands, have you people been to West Virginia? One, two, three, four.
Wow.
Wow, that's a lot more than I thought.
Awesome. Now who has family?
Yeah, so who has family?
Guys, who has family in West Virginia?
I don't.
Okay, so the question was, do you have family?
I did.
All right, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go to West Virginia, the next door neighbor of actual Virginia. We talked about this last year, I think. Do any of you remember that? Yeah? All right. Well, okay. Some of you remember. So we're going to talk about some things that you probably didn't know about West Virginia. So let's talk about the flag real quick. So you have this little white field, and then you have these blue edges. And just in case you're lost, just take a look at the flag. It says State of West Virginia. Just saying, it's kind of hard to miss. So you have these two men right over here. That is a mountaineer, and that is a miner. He represents the mining industry, and he represents the mountaineer lifestyle. So, and there's, I don't know if you guys can see it, but right over here on this little stump, it says June 20th, 1863. That is when the state was founded. It was founded right about the middle of the American Civil War. And right over here on the bottom, it says Montani Semper Libere, which means the mountaineer is always free.
It's not Christmas, is it?
No, not necessarily. We'll get to that in a little bit. So if we move on to the next slide, shall we? So in case any of you are wondering, West Virginia is located right over here. And if you look at West Virginia on a map, I always tell people, look for the frog. Because if you look at it, here are the legs, and it's missing some arms, but it's a frog. I promise, it's a frog.
Is it green or white?
Well, the thing is, as I'm about to explain to you guys, it's heavily forested. It is very mountainous because it lies upon what if you guys remember, the Rocky Mountains. So the Rocky Mountains extend from this part of America, and it goes all the way down to what we see here is Alabama and Mississippi and a little bit of Georgia. Just a tiny bit. And as far as the climate is concerned, during the summertime, it is pleasantly hot, as is quote unquote called, pleasantly hot and humid. And during the winter times, you get moderate amount of rainfall. So in other words, when it's time for autumn and winter, you'll experience some rainfall, but not heavy rain like we've experienced in the past here in Southern California. Yeah.
And then lots of water.
Yeah, because of the river lines. So if you ever go to West Virginia, keep in mind of this. Most of it is mountains, but it's also forested a little along here. So if you ever want to go hiking, put on some hiking shoes. Let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk about some brief history. So West Virginia, once upon a time, was just vast sprawling lands that was inhabited by the Adena people. They were Native Americans, very closely related. Actually, they're a subgroup of what we call Algonquin people. If I remember correctly, I might have talked to you guys about this. The Algonquin people were the inspiration for a lot of the symbolism we see on our money. So if you pull out your $1 bill, you have your eagle, you have your wreaths, you have your arrows, Native American symbols. Yeah.
How many hours on a plane?
Going straight without stopping,
Yeah.
a couple of hours, probably 6 at most. Kind of depends. If you're talking about relative from California to West Virginia, probably 6 hours at most, probably. And I'm not going to say depending on traffic because you're in the air. Don't worry about that.
That's pretty cool.
So it became a U.S. colony. Well, not necessarily a U.S. colony. It became a U.S. state in '63, as we talked about in the beginning, and it was during the middle of the Civil War. There were some people who were debating about whether they should or should not be doing what they were doing as far as laws are concerned, especially in regards to why the Civil War was started. And so they broke off from actual Virginia, and then they became West Virginia. However, the funny story is they had a bunch of names they were going to call themselves by the time they became their own state. These names included Kanawha, Vandalia, Augusta, Allegheny, New Virginia, Western Virginia, and there were other names I'm not going to try to pronounce. So, of all the names, they had to creatively stick with West Virginia. Yeah, so that's a little bit of brief history and etymology. Let's talk about what they're known for, shall we?
Oh, what is that?
This is New River Gorge National Park. So the park itself is not exactly huge, but as we've seen here, it's a bunch of beautiful landscapes and a lot of hiking trails and a lot of recreational activities like mountain biking. So think of it like how you ride your bike around here in the city, but the bikes are much bigger and they're a little more durable and they're more designed for, riding on a bike on a mountain. So you'll be seeing a lot more dirt and a lot more damage to your bike wheels. So yeah, and also, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a little bit on the bottom of the screen right here. Those are people kayaking. So it's boating on a river.
I know one. I used to do kayaking before.
So you know what I'm talking about when we're talking about kayaking, right?
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah. So let's talk about what else they're known for. Oh yeah, this is also National Gorge National Park. So there's the bridge, and then there's the river bend. I'm sorry, this is the bridge, and this is the river bend. So yeah, you'll be kayaking on rivers just like this throughout the entirety of the national park. So just keep in mind that when you're out here, yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to say the very least.
Is the water cold?
Well, yeah, it's going to be very cold because it's higher up on the elevation as well. So that kind of does not help matters. And keep in mind the rapids.
Rapids.
Yeah, so when you go to certain rivers, it'll be a straight line at first, and then suddenly it'll just dip a little, and then sometimes you'll have sudden drops. So be aware of that. Let's move on.
Oops. Uh-oh.
And there we go.
Whoa,
So that the thing that just disappeared, that is called Cass-Scenic Railroad State Park. So I don't know if you guys remember when you saw the flag, you had the miner who was holding on to a pickaxe. The thing is, West Virginia has, well, just like a lot of states, they have a long history of gold mining, silver mining, copper mining, and coal mining. A lot of this fueled the industry that we see here in America today.
It's a train right there.
Yeah, that's why it's called a railroad state park. So, yeah. And let's talk about more if it pops up. Yeah, the TV is a little wonky today. Oh, never mind. We lost signal. But I'll just explain to you anyway what it is. So, by a show of hands, do any of you know the urban legend of Mothman?
No.
Okay, not to spook you guys, but this is what it's known for. So, there's a legend arose from West Virginia called Mothman. Mothman first emerged in the 1960s. And ever since then, people have no idea what this thing was. There have been numerous sightings, and for some reason, Mothman has been appearing in places where disasters have struck. there was a famous bridge collapse that happened. And what do you know? Days before that bridge collapsed, Mothman appeared.
Whoa.
So it's one of those urban legends that they're known for. But I can tell you this much. The United States of America has been known for producing some of the creepiest urban legends out there. And West Virginia just happens to be the home of one of them. No one knows what this thing is, but people have pretty much concluded the same thing. Number one, it has large glowing red eyes. 2, it stands about 7 feet tall.
Wow.
3, it has a wingspan of 12 feet. And it can fly faster than most birds of prey.
Is it scary too?
I don't know. Would you consider it a scary thing to come across a 7-foot monster?
No, never.
I would.
Excuse you? This thing can lift a full-grown man. You know that, right?
And what is this called?
Mothman.
Mothman.
Yeah. So Mothman, obviously, being one of the urban legends. Oh, yeah. And because of the popularity of this urban legend, the people of West Virginia have even built a museum. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to pop up on the TV, but... Huh. Yeah, the TV's kind of wonky today. I don't know what's going on. Oh, okay. There you go. Mothman Museum. There's Mothman. Like I said, before he disappeared, large glowing red eyes, huge wings, and just as much of a big body. Yeah. So Mothman obviously grew to such great popularity. They created tourism. I don't know if you guys remember when we went to New Mexico and we talked about aliens over there. Yep. Just like New Mexico, these people took advantage of these legends that were made locally. So don't be too surprised if you see a lot of Mothman statues, because they tend to be everywhere. So yeah. And not just the whole city, but it's more like everywhere in the state. So let's move on to sports, shall we?
Sports.
So just like with other states, West Virginia does not have professional sports teams. It has instead college sports teams. In this particular case, West Virginia Mountaineers from West Virginia University. So they have 18 varsity teams, and obviously their colors are gold and blue. I was not able to find any stats on these people, so sorry, I can't tell you how many championships they won. My research was not very helpful. So 18 varsity teams. Like I said, if you could fit entire sports teams into a school, that's what they got. So football, soccer, volleyball, things like that. Yep, pretty much. Let's move on to the next one. This one's called the Marshall Thundering Herd from Marshall University. So they have a little less varsity teams, 15 to be exact. And their colors are Kelly green and white. And yes, people, this is Kelly green, whatever that means.
It's a color.
That's not what I meant, but thank you. But yeah, they're located in Marshall University. So keep an eye out for these varsity teams. Now, shall we talk about, if the TV will turn on. I was just going to say, let's talk about food.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's everybody's favorite subject, if this thing comes up. But I'll tell you right now, first thing on the list, buckwheat pancakes. So they are pancakes made from buckwheat. And they are a very specific type of wheat. And some of that wheat is used to make bread. Certain specific types of bread. So whole bread, not necessarily white bread, but whole wheat. Yeah. It's the TV, not the computer. Yeah, so that was the first thing I was going to talk to you on that. And then you have Tudor biscuits, pot roast sandwiches, West Virginia hot dogs, greenberry. peaches, and then West Virginian margaritas. The West Virginian style. The only difference being is that it would be made with orange flavored liqueur. Oh, you can sort of see that.
Yum. Who's
So-
hungry?
Yeah, that would have been the Tudor biscuit that you just saw. Tudor biscuit sandwich. So it would have had ham, egg, and cheese. Oh, and it would have also had a hash brown in the middle. Yeah. So
I love bacon too.
who doesn't like bacon?
Frozen too.
Yeah. Who does not like bacon? And we keep losing signal. I am not too sure what's going on. This is not our morning. Yes. Yeah.
Aw.
That was a good job, Daniel.
Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate it. So, if this thing keeps acting up on me, I'll just talk about some famous people. By a show of hands, have any of you heard of Steve Harvey?
No.
Give me a hint. Who is it?
He's the host of Family Feud.
Oh, I really enjoy that show. I like him too.
Yeah, he's a comedian, TV show host, and a businessman. He's known for, apart from his comedy stand-ups, he's known for hosting Family Feud, where every time you get the wrong answer, he would look at you and judge you harshly.
And shake his head.
He would be
Make a
like,
comment.
He always has something to say to you. My favorite episode was when the question was, name a small animal that is scary as a big shark.
Oh.
And no way you can mess up the question. What does the other guy answer? A chihuahua.
Yes. Yes.
He look.
Do you guys know why?
Dogs are dangerous.
Yes.
Dogs are dangerous.
Well, I wouldn't know about that. You seen Family Feud? Yeah. Yep, he was so judgmental against that guy. It was funny. He looked at the audience and the camera and he said, if that answer's on this board, I'm going to jump into the audience. Obviously, that was the wrong answer. Obviously, that was not the right answer. So, another famous person, by a show of hands, have any of you heard of Chuck Yeager?
No.
You?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, someone's heard of Chuck Yeager. Okay, so to those of you who don't know, Chuck Yeager was a pilot in the U.S. Air Force. He was a flying ace and a record setter for test piloting, who became the first U.S. pilot, or let alone the first pilot in history to break the sound barrier.
He's famous.
He broke the sound barrier, so yeah, I would say he's pretty famous. Isn't that why we're talking about famous people, Frankie?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, just making sure you understood.
I understand what you're saying.
So yeah, that was back in 1947. He became the first person in history to break the sound barrier with a fighter jet. So I'm not going to get into the science of sound barriers, but what you're hearing right now with your ears, that's just the sound we hear. And then there are the micro frequencies that nobody hears, except apart from certain animals. So you break that sound barrier, you can hear it in the air. And sometimes you can see it depending on how strong you break it. So with that in mind, let's talk about the people of West Virginia. So as of 2019, there are over 1 million people living in the state, with most of them living in Charleston. They're living in Charleston, and I forgot to mention that the capital of West Virginia is Charleston. It's also the largest city. And so the most common ancestors are German, Irish, English, and Italian.
Oh, Italian.
Yep. I am none of those things that I just mentioned. Oh, yeah, well, You guys may be, but I'm none of those things.
I'm not Italian.
So, Carrie, the most common ancestries in West Virginia are German, Irish, English, and Italian. Are you any of those things?
Irish.
Irish
And
and
maybe German. I was adopted.
okay.
Irish.
Yay!
So,
That means it's more populated with those individuals?
for the most part, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there are other people living in West Virginia, but it just happens if you ask them, what are your ancestry? 9 times out of 10, it's one of those 4.
Fantastic.
So-
Okay, fun.
And the TV is still acting up. So I will just conclude today's class. And I'm sorry that we could not get this thing to be working. So I tried my best.
Did we already talk about food?
Yes, we did.
Darn it. So what was the best awesome food? What, Matt? I don't know. If I may ask.
I know what
Anyone
my favorite is.
No. Jake, that was so awesome that you remember that because that's in our packet and that's a superfood. Air high five. What was it?
My favorite was the West Virginia hot dog.
Who doesn't enjoy the hot dog?
And what it is just basically a hot dog. I swear, I'm not kidding. It is 15 inches long.
Wow.
It is 15 inches long, and it has everything from grilled onions, grilled peppers, ketchup, mustard.
Again, a superfood. Meat, carbs, vegetables, dairy. It's fantastic.
Oh, man.
Okay, so we already talked about that. Sorry.
It's all right. I'm just saying, that was just my favorite.
So West Virginia, and we talked about the location already?
Yeah, and we talked about famous people. By the way, have you heard of Chuck Yeager?
No, who is this wonderful person? He's famous?
But what is he famous for?
What's he famous for?
Remember what I just talked about?
Airplane.
Yeah, something about an airplane.
An airplane.
He's a famous pilot.
There you go.
Pilot.
But not just a famous pilot, the first to break the sound barrier.
Wow.
1947. He
So
was
it wasn't Top Gun?
no.
Okay, just checking.
Top Gun is a whole other program. They're a real group, but whole separate program.
Fantastic.
So let's conclude today's class, shall we? So when you think of Virginia, most people don't think of West Virginia. Smaller state, odd looking, looks like a frog on a map. What else can you say about West Virginia? It's often overlooked. As uncreative as the name is, there are things that are very surprising even to most people. Urban legends, huge foods, famous people you never expect to be from there. Yeah. Pilots who break sound barriers, comedians who become TV show hosts who judge you for every wrong answer you get. I mean, what else can we say? West Virginia is pretty interesting, a hidden gem amongst many gems. Thank you so much. I've been your host, and I'll see you on the road. By the way, that's Chuck Yeager.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, you guys. So thank you so much. And we have not 100% sure what else to talk about. Oh, there's our pilot that Patricia and Jeremy were talking about. We have our packets. Our computer and internet is acting up a skosh, so we're going to go ahead and sign off today. And we sign back in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we appreciate your patience. Always tune in. And again, we are very apologetic for today's disruptions, but follow your packets. Is there anything else that we want to communicate about? No, we're good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Happy Thursday. Have a beautiful, safe 4th of July. Remember, we're off on 4th of July on the 4th. We'll talk soon. We'll see you Tuesday. Good job, Jake. I appreciate you trying. That's wonderful. That was a good, awesome guess.